Barely a few weeks out from the release of Thrones of Decay, and already Creative Assembly is putting out a number of hot fixes. The most recent hot fix released today actually did a few mild balance changes. Not that Kislev needed a lot of buffs, but the Frostwyrm was definitely a unit that missed the mark initially pretty badly, has now had a significant rework as he noms the ground there coming down the slope. Basically, the Frostwyrms are much smaller, which is good. It makes them a much smaller target for missiles to shoot at. Also means less enemy models can be in contact at the same time, leading it to die much more slowly. Also had a nice plus 25 bonus versus large slapped on there, so should be better in combat against large targets as well. Today, Felcon's going to be testing it out alongside some very strong Griffin Legion and some Kossar Spears, regular Kossars, front line of armored Kossars. He's got Ulrika and a Druzhina both on foot with their bows and blades ready to go. For myself, I'm coming in hot with the Tzeentch. We also had a minor change. All Furies, actually, for all Chaos factions, had their model count increased up to 60 unit models. Nice buff for them. Furies were kind of meh. They were okay in some circumstances, but often could just die very quickly before they could accomplish anything. So nice to see a little bit of a model count buff there. My build's going to be led by Sarthrel. I was expecting some Griffin Legions, so I wanted to have some anti-cav tools in the Final Transmutation and Searing Doom. Also got a front line of Marauders with the Blue Horrors as well, and a second line. Sour Guts are also kind of an anti-cav tool. They're a missile unit that then explodes in melee, so when cav come to fight them, they can do a lot of damage in return. Zangor here for support, a couple of Centaurs for some anti-armor as well. Definitely going to be very important to try and counter the Knights. The Griffin Legion even. But yeah, Soul Grinder is going to be firing away immediately, and because of the changes to the scatter shots, Soul Grinder of Tzeentch is now very good at fighting infantry and is just the best Soul Grinder by far. Probably needs to be significantly more expensive. We have probably like 1950, honestly, given how strong its shooting attack is now. As you see here, has been cutting down those Kossars. We're going to side shot through this armored Kossar, and I'll keep the health bar up so you guys can see the effect here. Yeah, it does a lot of damage. One volley there, and one shot's able to kill about 30 unit models from that unit of armored Kossars, so definitely putting the pressure on Felcon immediately to just rush on in. He's going to come straight up the pipe here with these Griffin Legion. I'm kind of moving my Centaurs to get ready to respond. Also going to throw in a Fury here to kind of help brace. Probably a little bit of a mistake, even with the extra model count. They're not going to hold up great against a unit like Griffin Legion. But Centaur is also moving in. You can see Felcon, a very nice kind of feint charge. Quickly terrifies those Marauders and then is going to pull away there. Kind of puts the Frostwyrm back in. And then, again, is going to countercharge in with the Griffin Legion as one pulls away, two more pull in, and a very nice Pit of Shade's going to be unleashed here. I'm going to fully admit I did not see the template whatsoever until it was too late. That's going to absolutely devastate both of my Centaurs of Tzeentch. I do respond here with the upgrade of the Final Transmutation. I'm just going to do a very solid amount of damage. Felcon, though, is able to kind of scatter his high-value units here that only one Griffin Legion ends up taking the brunt of that damage, so a little bit painful for me. I feel like I wasted a lot of Winds of Magic there, and also both those Centaurs just getting blasted. The Frostwyrm also now has an opportunity to move into combat against Sarthrel here, as he's caught up on the Griffin Legion. All my supporting Centaurs are gone. It's got that Frostbite anti-large here. Again, I'm busy microing like my Furies and things elsewhere. I've tried to pull out, but don't quite get there in time before the Frostbite kicks in, and I decide, you know, with that Frostbite active, it's best to just stay on the ground and fight. Here, only 63 speed, not going to be able to outrun the 75 speed of the Frostwyrm, and one big benefit of it is that it can keep up with those Kislev cavalry, but eventually we're going to call in a Searing Doom here, and nice rear charge by the rallying Centaurs. Felcon does countercharge there, but still able to savage the Griffin Legion pretty well and at least bail out Sarthrel so he can try and survive. Meanwhile, I'm attacking this left flank here, doing a decent job cleaning up some of these Kossars, but the Furies are kind of starting to run out of steam even still, and Kossars are definitely decent in melee. They're not a pushover missile unit by any means. Likewise, we see here the Griffin Legion charging through, shutting down those Blue Horrors. The Sour Guts also kind of overblobbed a little bit there, haven't been able to fire very effectively, but Soul Grinder has been able to use most of its ammunition, continuing to shoot through The Armored Kossars probably should be firing into the Cav Blob, honestly. The Griffin Legion are a lot more threatening than the infantry, but I was just thinking, you know, to myself, like, somehow I'm going to have to get through all this infantry. I figure if I can keep Sarthrel alive, maybe I would have enough magic, you know, with Searing Dooms and other tools to try and finish some of these Griffin Legion off. Speaking of which, these Centaurs are going to come through and try and chase some of these Griffin Legion off. Frostwyrm, though, still unaccounted for. Don't really have a good plan for dealing with him, other than maybe try and fight him with the Soul Grinder and, you know, hope for the best. But, yeah, more shots raining in from Soul Grinder as the Griffin Legion. Great job by Falcon, just running around everywhere with them, able to shut down those Furies. Now moving in once more on the Horrors. As the Frostwyrm comes back into combat, so far the Frostwyrm hasn't been able to pay for himself. Tactically, has done a decent job. Has got about half his value so far, but now against the Soul Grinder, with that anti-large bonus, will be able to perform quite well. Soul Grinder is a pretty pure opponent, honestly, without this anti-large bonus factored in. So with that now factored in, it will be in Frostwyrm's favor, like, in a pretty considerable way. Even still, Soul Grinder's holding out okay due to the damage initially done to the Frostwyrm, but see how it's telling over time in their favor. That said, Sour Guts, you can see here, exploding, taking out a few more of those Griffin Legion as they do so explode. We've pretty much dealt with 2 of the Griffin Legion, just about. The last one barely alive, but the armor-piercing and anti-large shots of Ulrika and the Druzhina here, I haven't really been highlighting too much, but you can see how low their model count is, or their ammo count is, rather. They were just focusing that ammo the entire time on Sarth, and especially after he took so much damage from that Frostwyrm in that engagement, just ended up not being enough. So, I mean, even though raw value-wise, initially, the Frostwyrm didn't do that well, tactically, just keeping, you know, Sarthrel honest and keeping him pinned in that engagement with the Griffin Legion, they could end up helping do a lot of damage. Tactically, it was pretty critical to victory here, between that and that Pit of Shades that savaged the Centaurs there. I think that was probably the 2 things that won in the game. Even with savaging the Centaurs, though, if I'd been able to get Sarthrel up in the air and, you know, kind of bail him out a little bit sooner, I feel like I probably would have had enough magic, maybe finish things off, and would have been tricky to kill these characters in the late game, certainly. But it's definitely a close one. Felt maybe closer than it looked, perhaps, in me playing it. But yeah, it's interesting. I do like the new Frostwyrms. I think they're going to be a nice addition in a number of matchups, especially as sort of an anti-large cavalry support monster, right? If you're worried about your cavalry flanking attacks getting bunker busted by some big nasty thing, or just generally want to have a little bit more punch and terror, especially, be able to punch through, it's relatively cheap terror and anti-large and everything else. So I think with it being a smaller target and that anti-large bonus, definitely worth taking in a lot more situations. Likewise, the Furies, still got to be careful about how you use them. I think against more traditional missile factions that don't have, you know, purely hybrid missile units, they're going to perform very well. Against Kislev, it's a little bit tougher, just because even Kossars, I mean, they're decent melee combatants, all things considered. But definitely a fun one. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.